O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf, and people of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent, and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. What do you want to do, Kartikeya? You want to go to sleep?
No, I want to take all my blankets from the chair over and put it over there.
So we just discussed the different natures of man related to the duties and how each is able to work according to their own duties, or each has different duties related to their own natures, we can say this way. So, and we discussed this a little bit yesterday. We come into 45, Shloka 45. And here, Lord Krishna brings it back together, which is, each man devoted to his own duty attains perfection. How he attains perfection while being engaged in his own duty, here now. Swami Shivananda adds this commentary. He says, this is the division of labor for which each person is fitted according to his own nature. The duty prescribed is your sole support, and the highest service you can render to the Supreme is to carry it out wholeheartedly, without expectation of fruits, with the attitude of dedication to the Lord. This will surely lead you to the Supreme. All the impurities of the mind will be washed away by the performance of one's own duty, and you'll be fit for self-realization, self-knowledge. So this is not unusual at all. I received a message yesterday from a dear soul who wants to be a monk because he wants to sit and meditate all of the time. That's Arjuna. That's Arjuna. Still, even when we know something about nature of truth, the power of the gunas functioning through this person are so strong that we can't avoid acting according to the nature. Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning. But not being happy with our lot, not being satisfied, the strong motivation is to do something different than what we're doing. But here, what's being shared is you're to do what you are to do. We've had this discussion before. Whatever we have the ability to do, whatever we have the ability however we have the ability to engage with life, whether it's with mental strength, the ability to calculate, the ability to figure things out, the ability to think logically, the ability to work with one's hands, the emotional nature, the ability to relate emotionally. Peace Pilgram, she speaks of Dharma. She never used the word Dharma. And actually, we were reading something last night. Erica had sent, in the discussion of virtues, Erica had sent a book, and we just got a hard copy of it that I started reading, called The Four Cardinal Virtues. And this is based on, really it's based on yoga. It's the same yoga teaching. The cardinal virtues are prudence, which is viveka, or discernment, discrimination, prudence, to determine what is proper, what is right, and finally leading one to recognition of higher truths. And then fortitude, which is willpower. Now I have to wait for them. We're waiting for the English word because the other two are dharma, which is doing of one's duty, and then the fourth is vairagya. So, but in English words, and I'll have to wait for the English words. We'll pull out the book in one of the evening satsangs and talk about it a little bit. And it's very interesting.
Swami, how does one sort of go about in basic terms, like, what is my career, I guess, but that's not quite, you said if you're good at working your hands, you're good at doing this, like, according to one's nature, like, the sort of difficulty that I've had consistently in my life, like, over and over and over again, is like, I'm okay taking care of Dad, and that's fine, that's not no problem, like, that's one of my duties, but then, like, a sort of other duties, like, what is my responsibility or duty as far as, like, in our society, you can say making money, but, providing, making sure that, like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or, like, I have a lot of trouble figuring that out. Like, I've had so many ideas,
right.
Like, I could do this, like, I try to work as an insurance salesman, I try to, like, work at a grocery store, like, just, like, that whole bunch of things. And what is like, how do I figure that out? Like, am I a monkey? Am I a fish? Am I
I mentioned Peace Pilgrim, and in the ancient times, the times that the Gita was written in, it was far more straightforward to relate to duty, because whatever your parents did, you did. But in this age, this is all broken down because of the materialist ideas. And the view that, this rebel in us, and we all have the rebel in us, but the rebel is getting pointed towards, well, I don't want to do what my parents did. And frankly, society is broken down to the point where what your parents did, it might not even be viable in this time. So, but what we recognize now is not what we do that makes us happy. It's the bhava with which we do it. So Peace Pilgrim has this approach that she shares, which is beautiful wisdom. And we won't see it in the ancient scriptures, but we'll see that it's very, very practical. She takes two things. First is really, really looking at what you enjoy. And Joseph Campbell goes there as well, which is, what is your bliss? And follow your bliss, whatever that is. Whatever it is that you enjoy, and then make it an offering. Don't do it for yourself. And that puts you in a natural place of Dharma. Puts you in a natural place. And she gave the example of and when you recognize it's not for money, but a little bit is required.
Sure.
Right? A little is required. And generally, what we see is when we're not just generally, but always what we see is when we're not actually doing it for the money and the pressure of the money is off, the money will come more easily.
Right.
And by the way, when the money comes, it's not ours anyway. And the money itself is a form of God. So So here's the example she gave. She talks about meeting a woman who was miserable in her work. She was really in the wrong, it didn't suit her.
Yeah.
And so it was very miserable. She was in office work. And so Peace Pilgrim just asked these simple questions when with her. She said, what do you enjoy? What do you love to do? And she said, well, I really like nature. I like flowers and all of this. And I love to sing. And I really like swimming. Now, in what order these came, I don't know. But Peace took a little bit of time with her to help her to see. And swimming wasn't going to bring the support required. And the singing wasn't developed enough to do so either. But Peace had met someone working who owned a flower shop and said, let's do this. And so she introduced her, and the woman started doing flower arrangements. Now, what's wrong with that, right? So she was doing what, and Peace said when she checked back on her later that her life had come to this, where her work was the flower arrangements. She swam for exercise, and 2 days a week, 2 evenings a week, she went to the retirement home and played and sang with the senior citizens the honky-tonk songs that everybody loved to sing at the time. And that life for her was an offering. And that's what's being discussed here. The other is receptive silence, which is something that we think of as meditation, but often when we're practicing meditation, we're occupying the mind in a way that we're escapist. And we go into the bliss, fine, and we're in. But receptive silence is not the same as that. Receptive silence is to ask a question, and the answer is always in the question. But then we try to figure it out. So we ask the question, but we're not allowing the answerer the space to listen to the answer. So she would use the phrase receptive silence to help us to catch what wants to happen. She would say, ask the question and then allow yourself to listen. So go on a walk in nature, or sit and genuinely listen, instead of trying to fill the blank and trying to think of what I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, as if you were alone and you had to work it out by yourself. So those two. And those two are really helpful. You ask other people what to do and you'll get every answer in the world. And then we try it, and it's a very funny situation, because in one way it doesn't make any difference what we do, because what we do won't make us happy.
Right.
And all we want is to be happy. So in a way it doesn't make any difference, but in a way it makes every difference, because if you do something that you're capable of doing, then engaging in it skillfully and making an offering, it becomes your path. It is your meditation practice at that point. So, and that's really what Lord Krishna is discussing here, is whatever that is, then make that your worship. Worship me with that. I'll give you a personal, the funniest thing. So, I was in the high-tech business for years, 40 years, something like that. And when I wanted to turn inward, I said to God, when I finally realized that this was all God, I said, and I'm lying on my knees, lying on my face, I'm crying, sobbing, and I finally know, oh my God, I got it all wrong. You've been here all along, and all of this, and then all I want is to know you and serve you. But then I had to add this provision. I don't want to live the old way. And I thought what that meant was I didn't want to do the old things. So I was surrendering with conditions. And then, what were the old things? Well, we had skills, we had gifts, organization working with computers, speaking, these kinds of things. And so, and I'm thinking, okay, all I want is to serve you, but I'm not going to do the things I'm good at. Because why? Well, the motivation was I don't want money anymore. I don't want to have to deal with money because I had my own ideas of what was causing the suffering. But through grace, the Lord took pity, carried me to India. And when I first got to India, it was the funniest thing because I didn't even take a computer with me. I did take the smartphone with me. And right away, swamis that I would meet would ask me if I could help them with their computer or their smartphone. And then look at how it develops, right? So all of the things that were gifts became my worship. So those are all what are given back. Other gifts that I never knew about being able to walk, 7,000 miles and those kinds of things. Those I can't speak to. But, so continuing. This is 46. He from whom all the beings have evolved and by whom all this is pervaded, worshipping him with his own duty, one attains to perfection. We've just discussed. So whatever it is that are the gifts, whatever it is we have the capability with according to our nature, by engaging in that way and by offering it and not being desirous of the fruit, simply making it an offering, then one attains to perfection. That's the simplest and most profound teaching of the Gita. That's the path to freedom. 47. This is a famous one. I think we've all heard this. Better is one's own duty, though destitute of merits, than the duty of another well performed. He who does the duty ordained by his own nature incurs no sin or remains stainless. Swami Shivananda, and it came through to Swami Vishnu in the Swami Vishnu's teachings as well. When we read the letters from Swami Shivananda in Shivananda Upanishad, when someone asks him what to do, he always tells them, do the same thing, but offer it like that. Swami Shivananda, Swami Vishnu, he was asked by someone, and this is just a memorable, I know what it was. He was talking with a group of householders, and he said, I'll give you two instructions. First is, don't ever change your mantra, and second is, don't ever change your partner. Because our own nature brought us whatever partner we have, whatever life situation we have. And it's not wrong. When we feel uncomfortable, miserable, etc., it's not because of it. It's simply indicative of what we're needing to work out. And the way to work it out is offering it. It's worship, devotion. So better is one's own duty. Some other duty looks better. Because why? The only reason it would look better is because we think it will make us happy and this one can't do it. And so, and by the way, gifts that we have, that we withhold, even coming to ashram, it's interesting. It's just indicating that we're still dealing with blockages, right? So it's not It's not judgmental. It's just, that's our stuff. That's our stuff. It's just discernment.
Could you explain a bit what you mean by withholding gifts?
There are things that we don't want to do, even though we might be good at them, because we don't like the results. We don't like what happens. We don't like. And by the way, maybe we might feel a certain way after doing them, but unless it's something that's so entirely self-centered that it can't be reoriented in a selfless way, then it's just a matter of the bhava. It's just a matter of the motivation, the motive, and how it's offered, whether it's done for ourselves or done for the good of the whole. There's in fact, one of our very long-term friends who's been so supportive of the ashram, his family, they're butchers. And so when he came to Path, he was convinced that he had to stop that. And that's a very interesting one. It's a very interesting one because on the surface, it's not ahimsa, but that's all his family has ever done, and that's all he was ever raised to do. And so he's dealing with this like he wants to quit, and it's the Arjuna thing. He wants to quit and go somewhere. No, you just do that and offer it. The Lord understands all of this. And you weren't placed in a situation that was without merit, where you didn't have the capacity or ability to be perfected, to come to union. That would be terrible if the Lord placed us in situations with families, in locations, with skills where we couldn't reach home. That's torture. Huh? That's a terrible God, to put us in situations for which we are forbidden to enter the gates.
So, if I understand this correctly, so like in that situation, since it was so specific, it's okay to continue butchering animals as an offering because then it's like...
Of course it is. Of course it is.
But if you were like in a family of car salesmen, you could take those skills of convincing and speaking skills, and then you can spread the love of Krishna or whatever that way.
There's also nothing wrong with selling cars as long as you turn around the motivation.
What if your dad was a crack dealer?
If he was a crack dealer, well...
I'm just taking it to an extreme, right?
Pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals. Yeah. No doubt there are skills that are developed in that which would have passed on that can be used in a different way. Yeah.
But sometimes your value change also along the path, so you realize that things are not aligned with your values.
Well, but you still don't have to do it. The opportunity will appear in front of you. But practically speaking, here's the situation here. We'll often find that we're so far away from the goal. We'll often find that we're so far away that we have to have a real break from ourselves in order to find. And so this is why monasteries and ashrams, etc., exist. One of the reasons is to provide for that opportunity. That was very much the case here. It's absolutely true that there's no fundamental reason why I couldn't have gotten on the right path and reoriented myself and devoted in the same business that I was in. There's no reason why not. But in my case, I needed a break, but it wasn't my choice to do it, interestingly enough. If I might have even instigated, but it had to be God's will, because otherwise I wouldn't have ended up in India. But then what I observe is the very same gifts and skills have simply been repurposed. Right? The opportunity was given to repurpose them. So, but it would have been very sound advice for someone to tell me, Swami, whatever name I was using at the time, it's just a matter of making this an offering, not doing it for yourself, but really genuinely to do it as an offering, as worship, as an offering to the Lord. Because from this place we can see all I was ever working with were the Lord. All were forms of the Lord. The money that I wanted so much is a form of the Lord. The person that I wanted to get as a customer or as a salesperson is a form of the Lord. All of this body, all of this breath, all forms of the Lord. So the notion that I was somehow apart, and all of this that was the issue. It wasn't actually ever what I was doing. So for someone to have said that to me, yeah, in fact, someone did say that, and I couldn't hear it. Yeah. We do our best here. And thank God the light continues to shine. But Krishna could have been standing there in the chariot with me at that moment, but I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening. So, but finally, his voice got loud enough that I had no choice. His voice through the suffering that it was being offered. Okay, so better is one's own duty. 48, we'll close with this. One should not abandon, O Arjuna, the duty to which one is born, even though faulty. And there's the discussion we just had. Even though faulty. And I'm going to tell you something completely sacrilegious. In the scheme of things, can someone who sells crack become enlightened? Of course. Of course. Now, they might find in the conversion that their gifts are repurposed. They might find that. Or they might find that it's God's will for them to continue in serving in that way. And who are we to judge that?
Yeah,
because every role has to be played here.
In that situation, that change in them would influence everyone that they deal with.
Yeah, it would. It would. You see it. Die. Whoever is the enlightened one in the room, all of them somehow are uplifted. Yeah. So who are we to judge it? Who are we to say? Because every role has to be played. And who are we to say that certain roles are not, it's not possible to become enlightened, to wake up in that role? Who are we to say that? So our whole way of thinking and relating to the world and judging one versus another is warped. Here, when Lord Krishna says, one should not abandon, O Arjuna, the duty to which one is born, though faulty. He's not saying except for this or that. As I said, it'll seem sacrilegious, and a couple of our family that join us online might have turned us off right now. Because we keep getting our notions challenged by these teachings. Right? Our best held beliefs, they keep getting challenged, that this is so terrible. But first is to offer it. First is to offer it. And then in that space of offering, if something is to change, the opportunity will be given to change it. But first, it's the inner person that has to change. It's not the outer person that has to change. In that, we get it backwards. We think the outer person, what I'm doing, has to change. That's still stuck in the notion that I can do something which will give me happiness. But it's only the inner person that has to change. And when the inner person changes, now the outer person becomes God's will. Because now we've really surrendered the outer. When the inner person becomes thinking only of me, devoting completely to me, offering everything to me. Those are the instructions. When the inner person becomes this, with whatever is in our hands, with whatever is, instead of trying to run and find something different to offer. Lord Krishna says that from my devotee, a leaf is a perfect offering. Whatever you have in your hand, give me that. And that's a perfect offering. That's all I'm asking of you. Just give me what you've got. If you have a grain of sand, give me that. If you have a little Coke, give me that. No, the guys, this is heretical as well. When Neem Karoli Baba received Timothy Leary and the fellow who became Ram Dass and all of these, some people in society would say, oh my God, they're the most terrible. They're because they weren't just using LSD, for God's sake, they were propagating it. They were telling everybody they should have it. Isn't that a drug dealer? Is it? Couldn't you call it that? Some people in society would say that, wouldn't they? Are they completely wrong in saying that? No. So they go to him, they're going to God when they go to Neem Karoli Baba. And Neem Karoli Baba looks at them and says, that'll get you in the room but it won't let you stay there. Here, let me have that. And he takes a few sleeves. And so that's what I suppose God has to say about that question about crack. Just focus on the inner transformation. Don't worry about the outer. Because as you make progress on the inner, then let me take care of the outer. Let me decide what circumstances you're to be placed in. And most certainly, when we look at the stories of the saints, most certainly as you begin to shine with that pure light, with that inner transformation, from that inner transformation, then the Lord will want you to be in places where you shine for his purpose, her purpose, right? Whoever it's with. We could think about it logically, but the reality is that's what it'll be. You may find yourself walking across the country. You don't know. You don't know. And it won't surprise you to see the gifts that you had. And it wouldn't even surprise you to see, okay, now I'm still in the hood. And this is what the Lord's doing through this. I met a fellow in Yuma just a few weeks ago. 2 months, I think it was. And he was in the gangs, and big in the gangs. And he has the tattoos and all of that. And he didn't change neighborhoods. His work is a bit different, but the people that he hangs out with are the same. And so now he's being used. He went through a complete inner transformation, and now he's being used in order to help others to go through an inner transformation, just like you were saying earlier. If we remember Jesus, where does Jesus go? Jesus goes to all the places the good people wouldn't go. So don't some transformations need to happen with terrible people so that they're with the bad people to give them an opportunity to transform?
It seemed like all the places he went were most open to,
I have found everyone to be open to the light. When I was walking pilgrimage, I never met a bad person. Now, having said that, I know that there are people engaged in activities that society would call terrible, but I never met a bad person. And whenever I met anyone, it was always the light meeting them, and they always smiled. They always experienced something that touched them, just because of bringing the light and being present. And so, it's a good discussion. It's a good discussion this morning on this.
Can I ask
Yeah,
something
please.
very briefly? When I took care of my father when he was in his 90s, and it was something that I initially resisted doing. I put him off for a year, but then I went ahead and took care of him for 7 years.
Right.
And through that time, I had to keep relying on the Lord. And after he passed, there's been a couple people who said, "Oh, you have such a gift with elderly people. You should offer help other elderly people out." And my mind was thinking, wait a minute. Just because I helped my father out, does that mean it's my duty or my dharma to help other elderly people out? And so this is what I'm currently wrestling with, because I've been given this opportunity a couple previous times. And so I realize the offering that goes into that, and yet I feel inadequate because I'm not like a medical person. I'm not a medical training. So I'm a little bit confused about the whole thing.
So here's what we discovered on pilgrimage. And it comes in the category of receptive silence and actually listening. So God communicates with us in multiple ways. Sometimes there's the inner voice, and I suppose we'll all have that experience where we have some inner voice that's just so clear, and intuitive voice. But that's not always the way. Sometimes through absolute strangers. Sometimes through the situations that we're placed in. What I discovered is when someone, just walking pilgrimage, in pilgrimage you're always open. So whatever anyone wants to say, they'll say. Especially, I don't run away from anybody, right? So I'm here. You want to say something? Please, I'm here. So I discovered if someone says something once, now recognizing it's always only the Lord speaking with us, inside or outside. There's nothing random, but the pattern was, if someone says something once, just pay attention. But if you keep getting asked the same question or the same recommendation repeatedly, then recognize there's something more to that. Yeah.
I have a feeling in a couple months that might come up again. So
Yeah.
Receptive to that.
Mine was ashram. I had no interest in it. Well, first pilgrimage. Driving around was kind of cool. But then ashram. No. And then so many, anyway. Integrity.
It's not something I would pick naturally, but I'm receptive, I think, to that
Yeah.
now. Whereas before, I'm still, just because I took care of him doesn't mean it. And I was on this
we
track.
understand.
And now it's like, okay, that's what I need to do, then so be it. But
We understand. Well, there's certainly nothing wrong with it. It needs to be done, and it's also
I don't know if I'm adequate enough to do that.
no. It's also clear that you have gifts that would be in great support.
And I
So,
don't have to be a medical doctor to take care of
and by the way, you can teach chair yoga.
it. There we go. That's great.
So,
Indeed, I can do that now.
yeah, you can do that now.
And actually, I'll be doing that in the next hour.
There we go. So, no accidents here, dear.
Oh, it's training. It's training.
Yeah.
So
We're always being trained.
Share that with the
Oh.
community.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Shivadas. Okay, let's close final prayers in RT, page 174.
Can I share something?
Yes, please.
It's down the street.
Oh, yes.
They also parents say?
Yes.
How old?
1 year.
What? First one.
Look at you.
First one, yeah. Yay! So now we bring awareness in support of you, my dear, with the final prayers in Arati. We're chanting for you. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritur Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritur Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritur Mukshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashanto Makashi Dukhabhat Bhave Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mritor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Humble our Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all of the saints and sages of all the traditions. We'll stand for Arati.